The Chinese use of water cannons against Philippine ships in their seas were becoming commonplace, and it initiated the call to change tactics. Secretary of National Defense Gilbert Teodoro stated a change in tactics would be needed but did not elaborate, but this week there was a hint of the new strategies. A new incident occurred this week in the Scarborough Shoal to challenge the Chinese. A Philippine group called Atin Ito sailed to the disputed shoal. The goal was a 3-day mission to provide food and diesel to the Philippine fishermen anchored around the shoal. Part of the Philippine group succeeded in entering the Scarborough Shoal and delivered supplies for 36 Philippine fishing boats. The success was twofold in that it was a humanitarian gesture to support the Philippine fishermen that face daily harassment from the Chinese, but also that it was able to breach the Chinese blockade around the shoal. The main part of the flotilla did not attempt to land in the Scarborough Shoal due to the heavy-handed Chinese presence, but did document the Chinese reaction. The Philippine government was not involved, but the Philippine Coast Guard did monitor the flotilla for aggressive Chinese activities with the official purpose of protecting Philippine civilians from Chinese reactions. The Chinese government did react to the incursion by authorizing its Coast Guard to arrest any foreigners trespassing in its claimed territorial waters, but this was issued after the Philippine group had successfully breached the Chinese line. Atin Ito is the same function that the Chinese maritime militia performs, and that is maritime gray zone tactics. Gray zone tactics are tactics between war and peace and are used to create conditions favorable to one side. The use of these tactics by China is to deploy its non-military forces to block freedom of navigation, intimidate and coerce foreign elements in the South China Sea. The intent is to ward off any smaller power from reacting to the presence of the groups conducting the tactics, to avoid an escalation or try to encourage an escalation so the bigger power can justify using military force to protect its citizens. The Atin Ito is a response to the gray zone tactics of China with a gray zone tactic of its own. The Atin Ito put itself in harm's way, knowing that any overreaction by the Chinese that caused the death of a Philippine citizen would be a serious escalation. Philippine President Marcos stated that any death of a Filipino could trigger the U.S. Defense Pact with the Philippines. The statement was in the context of a death of a Filipino serviceman, but it is an open question if it was only about servicemen or to all Filipinos. The Philippine Coast Guard was observing Atin Ito with the stated goal to protect its citizens. Is the intent to challenge China to force it to back down to avoid a situation that could kill a Philippine citizen and risk an escalation with the Philippines, the US and possibly Japan? Atin Ito is a challenge by the Philippines not to give up its rights to the disputed shoals in the West Philippine Sea, so the Philippines are not simply giving up their claims by abandoning the region to China. It is a challenge to China because if it acts aggressively against unarmed civilians, it could kill or seriously injure a Philippine national. If that happens, it risks triggering a showdown with the US. It would be in a region that China would not want to fight a naval war, so the escalation cycle continues to press the Chinese on their illegal claims.